Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Absence of guests. Many of you know that I'm a landscape architect, but what does a landscape architect do? Tonight, I want to explain a little bit about my profession, where it comes from, what our training is, what we do day in and day out, and then I want to most importantly connect landscape architecture to all of you. In its simplest terms, landscape architecture is the design and planning of outdoor environment. But the history of landscape architecture as a profession really only goes back to the 19th century, with the father of American landscape architecture, Frederick Law Olmsted, and his partner, Calvert Vaux, who first called themselves landscape architects in 1863. They had mentioned the term landscape architecture in their plans for New York City's Central Park. And after that, they called themselves landscape architects in the field of landscape architecture to describe their profession. From there, it increased and expanded to Europe and the rest of the world. There are 3 steps to becoming a landscape architect. It's illegal to call yourself a landscape architect in 3 states, unless you're licensed. And it's illegal to practice as a landscape architect in the 47 other states. We go through basically 3 steps. 1, schooling, either a 4 to 5 year bachelor degree in landscape architecture or a 3 to 3.5 year degree as a master's of landscape architecture. I had a non-design related history degree as my bachelor's degree, so I went for the master's degree in landscape architecture, which took me 3.5 years up at UF. Once you've graduated, then you have to go through an internship period where you work underneath a registered landscape architect under their direction and supervision for 1 to 3 years, depending on the state where you're working and plan on being licensed. Here in Florida, it's only 1 year. The final step is to take a test. It's a national test called the Landscape Architecture Registration Exam, or LARE. When I took it a few years ago, it was 5 sections long. 3 multiple choice exams on a computer, and 2 pen and paper exams where you had to draw out solutions to specific design problems. Some states also have their own section which tests you on the knowledge of particular issues to the state. Florida has such a section that covers things like what you can and cannot do with mangroves, which are a protected species, things of that nature, a lot of stormwater design. Once you've been through all of that, you've been basically given this body of knowledge that hopefully you've absorbed that ranges from design and construction and planning all the way through to environmental law, regulations, policy, ethics, communication. And the reason why we go through so much training is we are responsible for the health, safety, and welfare of every person who uses a space that we design. So it's our greatest responsibility to design to not bring any harm to anyone who should happen to pass through or use one of our spaces. So far, nothing I've said really explains what we do, so I thought it would be easier to show all of you what landscape architects do in pictures, since we work in pictures all the time. We design on both large scale and small scale. On the left is Central Park in New York City. As I said, was designed back in the mid-1800s. On the right is Paley Park, also in New York City. It's a vest pocket park. It is very tiny, but creates quite the impact. We design for the public. That's a picture looking down on the 5 Points roundabout here in town. My firm actually designed that before I was hired there, and on the right, for private clients, this is a residential yard, a very narrow side yard, actually in California. We design purely artistic spaces. In our in our circles, this picture on the left is Martha Schwartz. She's a big deal in landscape architecture. Some people love what she does, other people hate what she does. But it can be purely artistic. Those are bagels on the ground in between the little hedges. Or simply functional. This is a parking lot that has a stormwater swale down the middle that's vegetated to help slow down the velocity of the water. We design to sustain natural resources. This is a master plan for a community that will take advantage of the topography and the water resources and the cultural history of the area to make sure that they do as little harm as possible in creating a place for people to live. And restore where our resources have been depleted. This is a wetland restoration project in New Zealand. We also design new ideas. This is Freeway Park in Seattle, done by another famous landscape architect, Lawrence Halperin. As you can see, it's very modern and full of concrete. And then Mount Auburn Cemetery in Boston is a place that landscape architects have continued to restore. Things we don't do, we don't install the design, contractors do that. We'll go out into the field and maybe adjust on the fly or bring any problems to the owner or contractor's attention. We don't maintain the design. There are lots of companies out there that mow and blow. We usually don't design small residential projects that have very small budgets because homeowners are better off just letting somebody do it for free and buying plants from the nursery. And we don't identify what's wrong with your plant. So if your plant is sick, we're not going to be any help. So hopefully, I hope you've seen the connection between landscape architecture and you. It's all around you. You use it every day, you walk through it every day. We create outdoor environments that you experience every day, almost everywhere you go. Landscape architecture is literally all around you. Mr. Transmaster?